Hi boat builders, Larry Lalonde again with Geodesic Aerolite Boats. The next question we're going to answer is one of the more common ones. Again, is how do I cut those long thin strips accurately, consistently, and safely? If you look at the strips, this is not really an easy thing to cut. They're very long, very thin. I'm sure everybody that's thinking about these boats has some experience with a table saw. It's not a fun thing to do on a table saw. Believe me, I've done it. So what I've done is designed a jig strictly for cutting strips. And I'll walk you through the process here. The insert, the table saw insert, has been replaced with a zero clearance insert. And the reason for that is these long skinny strips, when you're cutting them, if you've got a standard insert on there, which I believe I've got right here, if you've got a standard insert on there, when the blade hits that little skinny strip, it's going to try and force it down in there. You're going to have a mess on your hands. So you replace this with a zero clearance insert. There's a million videos on the internet about how to do that, how to make them, how to buy them. So we're not going to cover that. So once you've got that covered, the next thing I did was to extend the fence on the table saw. Again, this is something you probably don't have to do. The reason I did it is because this is a small saw, it's got a small fence. This extra length on the fence gives me more room to feed the piece in, and it also gives me a place to mount the outbound feather board here for the cut. The next piece is, obviously you got the outbound feather board. The inbound feather board, I don't know if you can see this or not, just put it on a sander, sanded it down because you're making very skinny pieces, so that makes it a little bit easier to handle the skinny pieces on there. Now the most important piece is, this is what I'm calling the pusher stick, and it actually serves four functions. Pusher stick rides on the top of the fence extension. First function is it serves as a blade guard. You can't get to the blade when the thing is on there. The second function it serves is it contains the sawdust, and the sawdust goes down in and gets collected. I can cut a whole lot of strips and I'll have maybe 2 tablespoons worth of sawdust to clean up afterwards. And the fourth function that this thing serves is that it acts as a weight to help hold the piece down as you're doing your cut. These things are small, they're thin, they like to bounce around. This just helps to keep them going the right direction. So the way that you would use this is you take your piece to get cut. Now this is going to be rib stock. And you lay it on here and you set your outbound feather board. And you just push it down. You don't push it down hard, you just set it on there like that. And then you come around to the front side and you set your inbound feather board. Now this is one of the tricks. You can see we've got a very long table for cutting the strips going down that way. Not many people have 40 feet to have an inbound and an outbound table. So my trick on this is to use an ironing board. All right, it's easy to adjust. Helps you control your inbound piece. So you lay it on there. Put it against your fence, set your inbound feather board. Again, you don't put a lot of pressure on it. Lay your piece just before the blade, and then you take your pusher stick, set it on there like that. This feather board keeps it from going any further, and now you're ready to cut. So what we've done, again, to keep the saw quiet and to keep from throwing a bunch of sawdust around, is lower the blade down, so that we don't have to start the saw, and we're going to be right in the same position we were before we did that. So I'm going to show you how you actually would feed this through. You start up your dust collector, you start up your saw, and then you line the piece up from the ironing board through. Keep a finger on here to keep a little pressure on it, and just start pushing it through. We make a nice, clean, consistent cut all the way down with it. Blade's protected, the sawdust is contained. Keep pushing it through. You get to the end right here. You slide the pusher stick back, drops down, the notch catches it. You push it the rest of the way through, and you've got it cut. Now if you have another piece this same size to cut, then you'll just take this off, put the next piece on and cut it. If you need to cut that piece again, then what you'll do is you'll take the new piece that's had a piece cut off it, just adjust your inbound feather board a little bit, go ahead and make your second cut. Now in the last video we talked about scarf joints, and if you do the entire scarf joint like we showed on the big piece of wood, by the time you get done making these cuts, you're going to have smaller scarf joints. And every once in a while you make a scarf joint and the joint will be glue starved in that little area and they might break. Not a big deal if they do, they're easy to fix. But the quick test, go ahead and look down there, the quick test is you take your piece of wood after you cut it with the scarf joint on there and you just do that a couple times with it. And if it doesn't break, you're good to go. And that's how you make strips safely. Now the idea isn't that you have to make something exactly like this. You can cut strips on a bandsaw, you can cut them, I've heard that you can make them with a circular saw. You can make strips any way you want. You can build a jig like this any way you want. The whole idea is to make something that you feel comfortable with and that's going to allow you to make these strips consistently and safely.